Hey there, everybody. It's Mike Yao with Savage Kingdom's role-playing game and Fire in the Head Productions. So I thought I would do a video today about Alchemy in Savage Kingdom's 3rd edition. So I think the last one I did a couple of weeks ago was about healing, the various ways of how healing works in the Savage Kingdom's 3rd edition role-playing game, magical healing, mundane healing, etc. So in that video, I sort of referenced alchemy like once or twice, and so I thought, hey, why don't we make a video about the alchemy skill, because it's quite involved actually. So we're in this book right here, the Savage Kingdom's 3rd edition core rulebook, which I've showed many times, but I can't show enough because I want people to check it out and maybe even buy it. It'd be awesome. Oh, there's a hardcover right there. It comes in digital as well, as you know. So the alchemy skill is actually on page 132 in the skills chapter. Imagine that. Skills section. It is the second skill because acrobatics is first. Maybe one of these days I'll cover all the different skills, but right now I want to cover some of the meatier ones like alchemy, which we're about to do probably later on. Herbalism, healing arts, I kind of touched on last time. Yeah, probably the magical arts. I don't know. Maybe all of them. Yeah, whatever. We'll see. But today is alchemy. So on page 132, alchemy is based on intellect. Those of you who have the book or have played the game know what I'm talking about. It's one of the 6 main attributes of the game. Intellect is to put a D&D kind of spin on it, or Pathfinder, or one of the more notable games. That's your intelligence, but also the reason I call it intellect in the game is to be a little bit different than using the same old term, but also because it kind of incorporates more than just raw intelligence. So in D&D you have intelligence and wisdom. Wisdom's great and all, but wisdom to me, it's always been a little confusing with a lot of gamers. Sometimes intelligence and wisdom is hard to separate. Although in the real world, most of us kind of know what it is. But since these are composite terms and they mean lots of different things within the game system, I decided to call it intellect because it incorporates your kind of raw intelligence and maybe even some education, but also your awareness of the world, which incorporates a little bit of wisdom. That's why we have willpower in Savage Kingdoms as its own different attribute, because I think that tells a little bit more specifically about what it is and what it means in the game system. But anyway, alchemy is based on intellect. This skill represents one's general knowledge, identification, in the manufacturing of alchemical concoctions such as acids, elixirs, flammables, powders, and most poisons. In the SK world, alchemy, or alchemia, which I'll touch on in a second, is sometimes called the 8th magic due to its quasi-magical nature and deep study required. That's the first paragraph in the skill entry. So, going back on a couple things I touched on there. So alchemia is kind of the old word for it. In fact, it's based on a real world, on sort of an Arabic pronunciation. So in the world of Savage Kingdoms, I kind of connected that. As you know, this setting, some of you probably already know this setting is fairly, I wouldn't call it historical fantasy at all. It's a totally different world, but a lot of the cultures mirror some real world cultures from antiquity and the Dark Ages, and even the early and Middle Ages. Not all of them do, so don't get too lazy and think, oh, that's that, and I'll just play it exactly like that. No, it's all sort of based on it. It's not that unique, honestly. It's a lot of other game systems do a very similar thing. That's a whole game design video I should probably do later on. I've done several of those, but I should probably do maybe update some of them, and I can go into more detail of why that works so well, etc., etc. All right, so alchemia is based on a word from Hassan, which is the eastern continent of the Savage Kingdom setting. And so it kind of started there, but it quickly caught on in the West, particularly in the Pridonian Empire and Pridonian Islands and the Pridonian Republic. I mean, not really an empire; it never was really an empire. Larinthian Empire, and eventually it spread a little bit into Brythia, maybe even Molovia to some degree. Never has really caught on in Eridorn, or really Norland, Kimra, some of the more I hate to say barbarian realms, but they're more rooted in antiquity and more in tradition. Whereas magic, particularly an intuitive magic wielding, is more acceptable. Whereas alchemy or alchemia is looked at as almost like too much science, hard science. And I hate to use the word science in like a fantasy game, but the word has been around since the Greeks. So I don't like to throw it around too much. But basically, alchemy in the setting is kind of a combination of science, the way chemicals react with each other, and substances, even metallurgy, all that kind of stuff has to do with alchemy. Uh, but the big difference between alchemy and modern day chemistry is that alchemy also contained a lot of magical practices and theory crafting that had to do with. So they kind of married chemistry and magic craft together. And so that is why it's called the eighth magic often in the setting, because there are 7 disciplines of the magical arts. The eighth discipline, some people kind of refer to as possibly being alchemy. All right, so to go on to the skill, further into the skill, armor penalty is no, so there's no penalty for wearing armor or being, burdened down when using alchemy. Um, it's not that strenuous. If you're making some detailed concoctions, there's some focus there a little bit, but armor's not going to be a big deal there. Specialties for alchemy. So specialties are those things you can choose every 3 skill levels, or you can start with some of them depending on your culture, your race, and your culture. Specialties listed here are acids, elixirs, flammables, oils, metallurgy, poisons, powders, etc. But etc. because your game master can always approve different ones, or the players can come up with oh, what about this? And the GM can be like, oh, that makes sense within your character. That's cool. Do that. But as I've said in past videos, these are kind of hard suggestions. So like I would mostly pretty much stick to these, but yeah, their players might come up with 1 or 2 that might make a little bit more sense for their character background or something. Typical tasks and their DLs. So these are like all the skill listings. These are things that you can typically do within that skill. And the DL means difficulty level. So that's the target number you have to roll on the D20. Savage Kingdoms is D20 based. Just to kind of go over that really quick, it uses all D20s. Doesn't use any types of other dice. And the game moves pretty quickly because of that reason, storytelling wise. So to identify a basic acid is DL10, difficulty level 10. So in other words, not that difficult, but reasonably challenging. Identify a rare or advanced acid is DL15 to do so. Identify a basic elixir, oil, or potion, DL15. Identify a rare elixir or oil or an enchanted potion, DL20. Let me stop right there just to clarify a few things. So there are potions and elixirs in the game, and one word begats the other. But typically in Savage Kingdoms, when I'm referring to an elixir, it generally means a liquid-based alchemical concoction, whereas a potion is generally a magic potion, enchanted potion. And that's a different skill. You have to have some skill in alchemy. It's a talent, though, it's a mystical talent called craft potion. And you do need to have some alchemical knowledge, but also some magical arts knowledge, because, again, the two kind of marry each other. And so they really come together in a marriage when it comes to magical potions. So an enchanted potion and an elixir you're a little bit different, right? So a potion is actually encapsulates a spell within it. So whenever you drink it, it triggers the spell effect that's inside of it. It's a whole different thing, but just to kind of touch on that really quickly. Identify a basic poisonous liquid or powder is DL15, so yeah, somewhat challenging. Identify a strong or rare poison liquid or powder is DL25, difficulty level 25. So you're probably going to need some training in alchemy to hit that number, or else a super high intellect or a really lucky roll. Which makes sense because that's harder to do. Create a basic acidic liquid is DL20, has an asterisk next to it. The asterisk means if no proper equipment such as vials, mortar and pestle, etc., then add +5 to the DL. See specific examples below, which I'll get to in just a few moments. So in other words, to go back to that, create a basic acidic liquid is DL20 with the proper equipment. It would be 25 without the proper equipment, which makes sense. You're handling an acid and stuff, so yeah, it'd be pretty difficult. Create a strong acidic liquid is DL25 with the asterisk, which is the single asterisk, which is the same thing. If no proper equipment, you add +5 to the DL. So as you can see, it's already pretty difficult with the right equipment. Without the right equipment, it's DL30. So almost impossible unless you explode a 20, roll a natural 20, and you get to roll again, exploding to a 20 system. Create a poisonous powder is DL 20 to 25 with the asterisk, meaning, the equipment thing. There's a range there because it's kind of up to the game master on that one. It's a little bit of a broader category, poisonous powder or dust. Create a contact poison, DL 25 to 30 with the asterisk. So without proper equipment, that's 30 to 35, which makes sense. Contact poison is one of the hardest things to create, not only within the game system being very powerful, but even in reality, that's, contact poison is, at least a strong one, is really hard to do. Create an ingot/bar of sildaril. So this is getting into a little bit of metallurgy, because metallurgy is part of alchemy. It's kind of a combination of alchemy and like metalsmithing and blacksmithing. So very interesting. Sildaril means star metal, by the way, in the Shi language or Elvish. It's DL 25, and it has a double asterisk. The double asterisk says, if of dark Shi or Luna Shi race, the DL is 20 instead. A smithy and also alchemy level 3 is required. So you have to have at least level 3 to even try to do that. 3 skill levels in alchemy. And so if you're of dark Shi or Luna Shi race, the DL is reduced by 5 because Sildaril is more of a Shi/Elvish thing. So create a magical potion, see magical art skill. So I touched on that earlier. So you would actually go to the magical arts section and it would tell more about it. And then if you take the talent called craft potion, or then the talent would have a little bit more information there as well. But that's about magical potions, not really about alchemy per se. Like I said, they're somewhat related, but they're different enough, which is why it says see magical art skill. All right, moving on. So time required is the next little section of the skill section. Or skill entry. Time required. Identifying any alchemical concoction takes 2 full rounds or 2 actions, in other words, 6 seconds with proper equipment. Otherwise, it requires a half minute or 5 rounds if you were somehow doing this in combat or around combat or some other action scene. Creating alchemical acid, elixir, oil, or powder requires 1 hour per 5 points of the DL with proper equipment and workplace. Creating, smelting a small bar of sildaril takes 5 hours and proper equipment at workplace. All right, so let me break that middle part down. Creating an alchemical acid, elixir, oil, or powder, really pretty much any concoction, requires 1 hour, or any concoction but metalworking, requires 1 hour per 5 points to the DL with proper equipment and workplace. Without proper equipment, it takes twice as long, I believe. I'll get to that in just a second. So, for example, if you're creating something of DL 20, difficulty level 20, fairly, pretty difficult, but not ridiculously so. That means it would take 4 hours, right? Because 4 times 5 is 20. And that's with proper equipment and proper workplace. So without that, it would take at least 8 hours. Also, in almost all cases, it costs you 1 stamina point per hour of working with alchemy when creating alchemical stuff. Identifying stuff doesn't take that long, so it does take any stamina. But in general, it's 1 point per hour, which you will see in just a second when I go through some of the specific concoctions that you can make. Skill level achievements. For every 3 skill levels you've attained in the skill, you gain a specialty. See above, which we kind of went over already. So you could choose acids, elixirs, flammables, oils, metallurgy, poisons, powders, etc. Powders also would be known as dusts. Dusts sometimes in alchemy as well. At skill level 4, you gain a +1 bonus to magical arts, earth, and fire skill rolls. So that you would put that in the other bonus on the character sheet. Just to be clear, it's not an actual skill level. It's just it's just something that's you kind of learned because your skill in alchemy is also you unlocked a few secrets in earth and fire magic because those two are the closest to related to alchemy. However, at skill level 7, you gain a +1 bonus to crafting skill rolls and also magical arts, air and water skill rolls. So air and water also comes into play with alchemy, but later on because it's not as deeply connected like it is to earth and fire magic. At skill level 10, that's like grand mastery, you gain a +1 bonus to language and lore skill rolls. Lore skill rolls probably make sense because at this point you've learned a lot of esoteric knowledge and some deep secrets about the workings of the world and even magic as well and sorcery. The +1 bonus to language is because at this point in if you've got 3 skill levels in alchemy, you've had to interpret lots of weird symbols and different writings that are used for formula or formulae in alchemy. So that's kind of where that's coming from. All right, so there's a paragraph, and this is on page 133. We're still in the alchemy section about creating concoctions. When creating alchemical products or concoctions, a successful skill roll result represents the making of one dose or usage. So you're just focusing on the one usage, right? The one dose. Generally, this is considered one vial if a liquid, or one small pouch if a dust or powder. So think of like a dice pouch kind of size. If you fail your alchemy skill roll by 5 or less when fabricating an alchemical concoction, then you have expended half of the materials after half of the projected time required. This means you would need to purchase more components. So in other words, what it's saying, if you fail your skill roll by 5 or less, you expended half of the materials that you needed. In other words, half of the cost, which we're about to get into in a second as well. And it took you half the time. So in other words, halfway through the process and expending half the materials, you figured out this is going nowhere and it has failed. So it's saying that if you start again, this means you could need to find more components for half the listed cost required, or else you can try again later at a -5 penalty, because again, you're reduced down to half of your starting materials. If you fell by 6 or more, then you ruin all the materials, but only half after half the projected time. So you screwed up, all the materials are gone. But at least you figured it out halfway through the process. So maybe it saved you a couple of hours. If you fail by 10 or more, okay, that's the one I just read. You expend half the materials after the full projected time. Right, okay, sorry. Fail by 6 or more, then you ruin all the materials, but only after half the projected time. If you fail by 10 or more, then you expend all the materials after the full projected time. So you get the whole process, only realize that nothing has worked and you've ruined all the materials. For critical failures, which means you failed by 10 or 20 or more, or you got a natural one, or no, you scored a natural 1 on your alchemy roll, and it's 10 short of the DL. That's how critical failures work. You think I would know. Savage Kingdoms. That means please consult the alchemy skill entry. So in other words, we would go to the critical failure section. Note that proper equipment means flasks, vials, crucibles, mortar and pestle, a cauldron or brazier, and various other implements for stirring and handling. So to go back, so I don't forget, so at the very end of the alchemy skill section on page 136, like I said, it's a big section. That's why I'm doing this video. Critical failure, so there's 3 different options there, unless you want to come up with one yourself. Number 1, accidentally injure yourself when examining or creating a concoction, which is 1 health point of damage per point of resistance roll failure. I should say critical roll failure. So in other words, if you end up with a -2 on your skill roll, that means you would take 2 points of damage. You burn yourself or something. Number 2, accidentally spill or destroy half of the concoction right after entire process. So destroy half the concoction right after accidentally spill. Okay, I don't know if that one makes any sense because there's already a built-in penalty for doing that. Number 3, cause damage to your surroundings, such as burnt furniture, destroyed flask or vials, personal gear, or whatever else for the GM discretion. The reason I'm laughing there is I've seen that one happen before. Not that long ago, maybe a year ago. I think it was online play, but still, it happened. It was pretty funny. Yeah, some character borrowed an alchemist workshop in a town or a settlement, a city, and rented it for the entire week. Told the alchemist to go away. I think he was trying to make some kind of secret stuff, some kind of poison, I think, or strong acid. I can't remember. Anyway, and proceeds to critically fail his alchemy roll. And that was the result he got. And he ended up burning half of the alchemist shop down and destroyed most of his his equipment. And I can't remember what happened with that character. I think that character was not very honorable. I think fled in the middle of the night. I think. I can't remember. It was pretty funny though. Obviously. Anyway, so continuing on in the alchemy skill, that is concoctions and stuff. So here's several things. Here's listed in the book are about how many did I print in here? Gosh, about a dozen alchemical concoctions that you could do. Starting with mild acid, it's DL10 to identify, DL10 to create. You must have alchemy skill level 1 to even try. To how would you? What else? How else would you know what you're doing? Material cost is 1 silver coin per dose. Time required is 2 hours / 2 stamina cost. All right, so to break that down a little bit, to create it is only difficulty level 10 if you have skill level 1, so it's not that hard. It's a mild acid. This is a basic alchemical acid capable of eating through a ½ inch of wood and iron or even steel, but does not affect stone and only about a ¼ inch of silver or gold. This type of acid does nothing to flesh or vegetable matter apart from wood. So there you go. So it's mostly to break down stuff like eat through manacles or lock or whatever. Sneak onto an enemy's weapon where it breaks or something. Yeah, so material. So that's right. Material cost. So 1 SC or 1 silver coin for short is how much it would cost for them. So you would have to have at least 1 silver piece's worth of materials to even try it, right? Because you got to have some probably acids that you find in nature, like enzymes that are inside of animal stomachs or even human stomachs, for starters. There's probably different other plants. This is kind of where it gets now to herbalism slightly. That have so you need some basic materials, right? Is what it's saying. Time required is 2 hours, and the reason it says / stamina cost 2 is because, like I said earlier, it's 1 stamina point per 2 hours, generally speaking. Because I think there's a formula coming up that it's the formula's off by 1, and I'm not sure if I intended that to happen or if that was just a typo. But we'll see when we get to it. Then there's strong acid. I'm not going to go into detail on all of these, especially at 21 minutes or 22 minutes. Acid strong, DL20 to identify, DL15 to create. Must have alchemy level 3. Material cost is 3 silver pieces per dose. Time required is 3 hours. Stamina cost is 3. This is a less common type of alchemical acid. It's capable of eating through an inch of wood and iron or steel and a ½ inch of bronze, copper, silver, or gold. Also dissolves a ¼ inch of stone. This acid also deals 2 health points of damage per round of exposure to living flesh or vegetable matter to a maximum of 10 points of damage. So that's pretty nasty. Or 5 rounds. So wait. Oh yeah, for every round that you're exposed to it. It's 2 points of damage. If a thrown vial, then it deals 1 health point damage per point of success on the thrower's alchemy or weaponry ranged roll, maximum 10 points, versus the target's dodge defense. Note that armor only counts as half effective against acid. Most forms of strong acid are outlawed in many regions, or at least under strict control, such as in the Larenthian Empire. All right, so yeah, pretty cool. Visceral acid. This is the next level of acid. Visceral acid. It's DL15 to identify, but DL25 to create. Must have alchemy level 5 to even attempt it. Material cost is 10 silver pieces per dose. Time required is 4 hours / stamina cost 5. That was the one I was talking about. That's weird. I'm not sure if I intended it. It's not a big deal. If you want to assume that it's a typo, you can easily just make it 4 hours instead of 5. I'm trying to see. Usually I have some kind of little reason why that would be. Whatever. Also known as Ender's acid or Gorgothon's ichor, this very rare substance can eat through 3 inches of wood, 2 inches of metal, including precious metals, and 1 inch of hard stone. This deadly and rare form of alchemical acid deals 5 health points of damage per round of exposure to living flesh, to a maximum of 20 points for 4 rounds of exposure. If an open vial of this substance is thrown, the vial itself must be made of mastercrafted steel, diamond, or silver, by the way, or else it'll eat through it. It deals 2 points of health damage per point of success on the thrower's alchemy or range weaponry roll, a maximum of 20 points, versus the target's dodge defense. Visceral forms of acid are illegal in virtually all known realms, save for certain powerful and often secretive groups or orders, such as the Order of the Golden Crucible, for starters. Black Devil Venom is like the next entry. Alchemy level 4 you need to even attempt. 12 silver pieces cost to material cost, 3 hours, 3 stamina points. Let's see, I won't read that whole thing, but suffice to say that it causes agility damage as well as health damage it causes a very nervous shakiness into those who fail to resist it. to deal 20 endurance roll to even resist it, or else lose 2 points of agility and 2 points of health damage per point of endurance roll failure, maximum of 20. So yeah, if you say roll a 5 on your endurance roll, you could take, that's 20 points of damage. That kills most people, most characters, and certainly most NPCs. On a critical failure, the victim is slain immediately and painfully, and an expenditure of 2 luck points will make the character comatose for 6 hours instead, with the GM's approval. So you can avoid the death of that by spending 2 luck points, in which case you're still comatose for 6 hours. Okay, then there's something called Blackfire. Yeah, Blackfire is pretty cool. It's like almost the penultimate. It's even more powerful than Visceral Acid in some ways. You need Alchemy level 5 to even try it. It's 15 silver pieces per flask for material cost. Takes 5 hours or 5 stamina. It's very volatile. It's basically also known as Netherfire or Agathon's Wrath, or Argathon as he's sometimes called as well. God of War and blood and conquest. It's an extremely rare substance and both difficult to create and hugely devastating to almost anything it touches. Blackfire, you see, burns and incinerates nearly anything from wood to stone to metal to flesh and bone. About the only thing it doesn't burn is water. Silverale, star metal, and heroic quality or enchanted steel. So in other words, the container that you keep Blackfire in is going to have to be Silverale or heroic quality steel. In other words, super, super well made. Probably only by Torgar and or Alunashi or High Elves, basically. All other substances are destroyed with swift abandon in a 2x2 square yard area. Blackfire ignites on contact, usually by way of shattering the flask containing against it, which is kind of weird because it would be almost impossible to shatter. Not sure why I put that in there. But, perhaps there's sorceress ways. Normally you would have to, probably splash it. If tossed at a creature, the thrower makes an alchemy or weaponry range roll, just per normal, versus the target's dodge defense per normal with 3 points of damage resulting per point of success to a maximum of 30 points. Armor is only half effective if made of heroic quality steel. Otherwise, 1 point of armor rating diminishes per 6 points of damage dealt. Repairs would be nearly impossible. So in other words, it literally just eats it, incinerates whatever it is. Disintegration is really what I'm trying to describe, but without being too science fiction-y. Blackfire is extremely volatile, so a critical failure on the ranged attack roll causes 3 points of damage to the thrower, or 3 points per point of critical failure. So again, like example earlier, say if you got a -2 on the, you could take 6 points of damage from, and that would also eat up 1 point of your armor. The victim also requires the disfigured weakness because it's going to burn a lot of your face and top of your hands away. In fact, carrying around Blackfire can be risky, as falling down hard could potentially set a flask of it off as well. Depending on what it's being carried in. GM discretion is why it says that. Oddly enough, Blackfire is not combustible through heat or open flame, even though itself is somewhat fire-like, though the flames are black in color. So it's this weird, that's why it's called Netherfire. Some people call it that. It's this weird black kind of flame-like substance, produces no heat, and but just eats away everything. It's kind of it's almost my way of describing, without being too science fiction-y, disintegration and also like antimatter, I suppose, in a much more contained area. Then Black Slavka is something you create. It's a favorite of some of my live players because we play a lot in Malovia, and a lot of Malovia nobles like to drink Black Slavka. Black Slavka is made out of Slavka. It's like vodka, right, in real life, but I come up with a different name, right? Whatever. But Black Slavka has Death Lotus in it, right? Purple Lotus, whatever you want to call it, same thing. Not Purple Lotus, Black Lotus, or Death Lotus, same thing. Some say it has blood in it as well. I stopped the accent. It's terrible. Usually it's pretty good for some reason. It's not on. Malovian nobles used to drink it, and warriors would drink it before going to battle, because if you succeed in a deal 10 endurance roll, if you gain +1 to your vigor for an hour. So that's +1 to your health, and life and death magic, and whatever else, vigor, stamina. So if you fail that endurance roll, you become heavily inebriated for 10 minutes per point of failure. So if your roll is like a 7, you would be out for like 30 minutes. Then you can make a mild blade poison is the next kind of thing that we got listed here. Deal 10 to create, must have alchemy level 1, so it's not super difficult, but does require some training. 2 hours, 2 stamina points, so mild blade poison. Alright, so basically what it does is cause a mildly poison condition, or no, hold on, yeah. And I don't think it does any damage, it just makes people very mildly poison condition is -2 to all your die rolls, your defense, and also your mobility. Still 15 perception sight spell should you detect it on someone's blade, so that's all listed too. Anyways, people can detect it. Oh no, it does call 1 point of health damage is dealt to a living target as well per point of roll failure, maximum damage of 10. So yeah, so it does health damage too. Strong blade poison is next. It's DL 22 to resist, so that's pretty tough. Or else you gain the strongly poisoned condition, and also deals damage as well, like it did with the mild. Yeah. All right. Moving on. Like I said, I'm not going to read all these. Just kind of touching on them. Sleeping elixir is really cool, also known as a sop. So deal 15 to create. Material costs 4 silver pieces. Takes 2 hours to make. So it could put someone into a deep sleep for up to 8 hours. Normally you would put it on a victim, right? Normally an assassin or somebody would put it on a victim to knock them out instead of necessarily killing them. Maybe to abduct them or just to take them out of commission for a bit. And it puts you in such a deep sleep that it's DL 20 healing arts to even determine if the victim is still alive. Like to most people, it looks like you're dead. You're in such a deep coma. It's DL 15 to resist falling asleep from it, by the way. So yeah, it's fairly difficult to resist, but certainly not impossible. And then some people might use it on themselves. I actually had a character use it. They were being haunted by these terrible nightmares and were not able to get a good night's sleep for like 2 or 3 nights in a row. So they were gaining all their stamina. In fact, I think they were maybe down to 0 stamina, and it was pretty bad. It was fun. It was a cool story, but so they bought or made a sleeping elixir so that they themselves could sleep deeper, and it totally worked. So it was a cool idea. Fangs of Zur. So Zur is an ancient serpent god, mostly known in the East, supposedly introduced by the Sleer, who calls him Slur. Best way to pronounce it in their language. And then the Zirconians had a deity called Zur, and a lot of people think it's really just the same because it also was an ancient serpent, kind of an evil deity, but also, evil supposedly, but also was a deity that kind of stood for knowledge. And this is where, and yes, I'm kind of taking a little bit from kind of mirroring the Bible a little bit with the Garden of Eden and the serpent, studying for knowledge, and that's how they learned alchemy and sorcery so quickly back in those days. But anyway, Fangs of Zur, because Zur being a massive serpent that supposedly encircles the world, his venom would be ridiculously powerful, one would assume. So this concoction is called Fangs of Zur. It's a very powerful, probably the most powerful poison in the game, probably, I think so. Also known as Thorns of Zur. So it can cause pain-inducing instant death, DL22 endurance to even resist it. Even if you succeed, I think there's still something happens to you, Death Lotus. The main ingredients are Zurian serpent venom, mummy dust, and Death Lotus as its primary ingredients. So, easy stuff to acquire, right? Speaking of which, material cost is 13 silver pieces per dose. Okay, next thing is Jaya. Jaya is a Slerian healing elixir. It's DL 20 to identify, 20 to create. Although if you're of Sleer race yourself, it's only DL 15 to create, because you obviously would have more knowledge of it, since it is a Slerian healing elixir. You need alchemy level 4 to even try. This is kind of a cool thing, like if you're non-Sleer and you drink it, it is an elixir, it's not an oil, so you would drink it. If you fail a DL10 endurance roll, you actually become nauseous for which is the sicken condition for an hour time. So if you otherwise, it restores 5 health points and 5 stamina points. So this also not only heals you, but also gives you some of your focus back, some of your spiritual and mental energy back. All right, then we got mild ingested poison. So now we're getting to the ingested poisons, things that you have to drink, right, instead of wound-causing or blade poisons. So we have mild, then we have a strong ingested poison, and Then we have going to Maiden's Blood. Maiden's Blood is another type of poison. I just wanted to give it a cool name, but it does have slightly different effects than some of the other poisons. Potent toxin made with a combination of basilisk venom, blood from a red cap, and allegedly lamb's blood, plus a few other minor ingredients. If imbibed, the victim must succeed to deal 20 endurance rolls, suffer 1 point of health damage, also gain the strongly poison condition. What else does it do? Do some other stuff. Oh, it's a contact poison too. Maiden's blood can be a contact poison as well, which is why it's pretty expensive and powerful. Although it's not quite as lethal in contact form. So it's deal 15 to resist the effects instead of deal 20 if it's imbibed. Pridonian fire. This is a lot of people's favorite. This is probably the most common alchemical, probably other than maybe like a mild poison. Anyway, it's definitely up there. Alchemy level 2 to even try it. It's only 4 silver pieces per dose. It's basically like Greek fire. I call it Pridonian fire because the Pridonians are the closest thing to like the ancient Greeks of the real world or the Spartans. And it actually floats on water for like 3 rounds. It can burn on water, so it's very useful in like ship-to-ship combat that the Pridonians used. It's not explosive per se, like in the modern sense of like but it is very quickly combustible, so it's almost explosive. And like I said, it'll burn for 3 rounds, and it can cause some good damage, not only to wooden things, but also to people. Then there's a healing salve. Deal 15 to create. Alchemy level 2 to even try it. Basically, it makes your wounds heal faster. It doesn't give you immediate, like, magical healing per se, but you can heal up to 3 times faster than normal. It also gives you a +2 bonus when making endurance rolls to resist poison and diseases and stuff like that. So the last one that's listed in here is Witch's Spittle, another kind of poison with a cool name. It's called Witch's Spittle because it's more of a herb magic, hedge magic kind of witchcraft. So it's more of a folklore kind of poison. It's made from herbs that mostly, a lot of peasants and people that live off in the countryside can more easily gather. You obviously still have to have some knowledge. You have to have must have alchemy level 1 and herbalism level 1 to even try it. So this one, you actually need some herbalism as well. Like I said, level 1, because it is using herbs. And the reason it's under alchemy, however, it could probably be under herbalism as well, is because you have to distill it down into some, so it does require some actual alchemical knowledge as well. It causes people to gain the poison condition. If they critically fail their endurance roll, they become paralyzed. So this thing can not only cause you to be very weak, it could also cause paralysis. Okay, so wrapping up the video, it does say other alchemical concoctions at the GM's discretion. Other strange and likely potent alchemical recipes must surely exist, such as Solarian glowstones, Chundri poison, Zinju ale. Some of these are like Chinari and Gajula terms, or perhaps even more exotic feats of alchemia, such as the hellish alchemia of demon lords. Right. And then there's like a little chart for critical successes. On your alchemy skill rolls, identify an alchemical concoction immediately as a free action is one possible critical success option. Create a concoction in half the usual time and cost. That's pretty nice. You stumble upon a discovery which yields to you a +1 other bonus to your alchemy skill rolls, or gives you a +1 to your renown, your choice. So, very cool. I think it's going to about do it. 38 minutes is not horrible. I want it to be a little bit shorter, but that's doable, right? Hopefully there's some good information contained. That is about the Alchemy Skills Savage Kingdoms 3rd Edition. Thanks for tuning in, and like, subscribe, and all that stuff. Check out the game, and I will talk to you guys again soon.